Welcome to Do You Ever Wonder? The show that brings you answers to many of the questions that you may have, but with no one to ask. Do You Ever Wonder is hosted by Mike Haltman, CEO of Hallmark Abstract Service, who, like you, has always been deeply curious about a wide variety of topics. Each week, Mike will be speaking with guests who are leaders in their field and who have inspirational stories to tell. So now, sit back and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. This is Mike Haltman, and welcome to Do You Ever Wonder? Today, we are incredibly fortunate and lucky to have with us Neil Garfinkel, managing partner of Abrams, Garfinkel, Margolis, and Bergson. I think I got that right.
Perfect.
And Neil has a plethora of accolades, and his background is stellar. His education is fantastic. But what really excites me about having Neil on is that he's a SUNY Albany graduate, as am I, and that is probably the most impressive thing about him. So, welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Mike. I agree. We made it out. We made it out.
We did. We made it to the other side. So some of the other things you do, you're the broker counsel to REBNY, the Real Estate Board of New York, which is a very high position to be in. You were appointed to serve on the New York State Real Estate Board by then Governor Cuomo. Neil is a major supporter of the Heroes to Heroes Foundation, which I serve as board chair. Neil is a great supporter, and he was actually an honoree. So thank you for that, Neil. We really appreciate that. But Neil is also the creator of the Toolbox for Real Estate Agent Success and the Real Estate Center for Success. And for any real estate agents out there in New York, what Neil offers is critical. And it's not just for agents, it's for brokers as well, because ultimately the broker is responsible for the things that their agents do. So, what I'd like to focus on a little bit, Neil, are those things, if that's okay.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Mike, let me, I don't know if people in the audience have heard me talk about this before, but I'll just give you just a little insight into kind of how I wound up here. So I worked at a big firm, worked at a small firm, and then when we started our firm, it was Abrams Garfinkel. My partner, Bill Abrams, was a SUNY Albany grad. We were roommates at SUNY Albany, and started out, go Danes, and we were a real estate attorney. I literally had no clients. I had a trust and estates matter that I was working on, and I said, how am I going to do this? And it occurred to me, well, maybe if I work with real estate agents, that could be a good opportunity. So I approached the Long Island Board of Realtors. I said, could I teach for you? And they actually helped me get certified in New York State. And I started teaching their licensing class for them. And it evolved. I became the chair of some of their committees. And I did that for the first 12 years of my career. And then REBNY called 17 years ago. And I've been counsel to REBNY ever since.
They called you out of the blue. You didn't.
I was recommended by some clients who knew REBNY, and so I've spent most of my time. I'm primarily known for probably two things. One is representing the real estate brokerage industry, which, looking back, fortuitous, maybe a great idea, just really lucky, but it really has served me well. And then the other thing that we got very lucky with was that small firm that I worked for, they represented banks doing closings. So I learned how to do that. My partner, Bill Abrams, had a relationship with it was then called Skyscraper Mortgage, really big mortgage brokerage company. And so right out of the box, 29 years ago, literally this month, we were able to, between having that basis of understanding of working with real estate brokers, really starting that out, and then also knowing how to do bank closings has really served us well. So fast forward 29 years later, it's really been an amazing, I just feel very fortunate that kind of picked these things, and it's definitely worked out.
You know what? Luck is a funny thing. We make our own luck. You can sit back. My father used to say there are two decisions, omission and commission. We can sit back and let life do to us what it may, or we can choose to go forward and you know, obviously you started with nothing. You built an amazing firm. How many banks do you represent now?
I mean, we represent probably 200 lenders. So, so yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah. I've been, look, and very lucky, and I've had good partners. We've brought in partners who had their own firms. I just feel very fortunate. And like you said, luck is sometimes you have a decision to make a right turn or a left turn, and who knows why you make the turn that you do, and hopefully it works out. And yes, there's a level of being prepared and working really hard and all of those things that support that. But at the end of the day, again, I think the most important thing, two things. Number one, I feel very fortunate every day. And number two, I do have a philosophy of never stop, because if you stop, you get run over. And maybe that's a little crass, but it's true that unless you're evolving and learning and building every day, you will get passed by. And so 29 years later, I'm still really doing many, many, many of the same things that I did when I first started.
Well, you know what struck me, a word you used, I think, two times, maybe three times, but fortunate. And, one of the things that I try and teach my kids, we go to soup kitchens and serve breakfast. I try and teach them gratitude. And I think that fortunate and gratitude are very similar words. And, you've achieved quite a bit, but you're grateful for it. And, that's a phenomenal thing. A lot of people look up instead of down.
Yeah, and look, and as people, I hope they appreciate how much time you put in to giving back, because your role with Heroes to Heroes and all the things you do is truly amazing. And I don't think you certainly don't look for the credit, but you deserve a tremendous amount of credit. You got me involved in Heroes to Heroes. So, and the time and the effort you put into all of the things you do, it's very commendable.
I appreciate that. But this is about you, Neil. This is not about me.
So,
Well, what, speaking of Heroes to Heroes, we'd love to have you on the board, but that's a side conversation. Uh, so the real estate industry has changed quite a bit since you started 29 years ago.
yeah, so the answer is yes and no. So there's a lot going on, particularly in the real estate brokerage industry right now. There are lawsuits at the national level, the National Association of Realtors, and the construct is, well, the way that brokers work together is anti-competitive. And there's been some lawsuits, some judgments, and I keep telling the industry, number one, we don't know where this is going to wind up. So control what you can control. You can't control where those things are leading, but you can control being the best agent that you can possibly be, particularly in an environment where you really need to express to the consumers what you do, how you do it, and so on. But
Value.
importantly, and I want to make one final point there, though, going back to, though, I said, I've been representing the brokerage industry for 29 years. I started, and I've seen every possible structure and idea about different ways to conduct business. And you know what? Real estate agents are really important. They bring a tremendous amount to the table. I am a huge, huge proponent, not only because I work with them, I use them, whatever the case. And the point is, though, is that things are always changing, and you just need to evolve, and you know what, and establish your value, establish your worth, and you will be fine. And so, yes, there's all these changes, but at the end of the day, there's still the same core concepts that you conduct your business. And if you do that, you will be successful.
So I'm going to put you down as not sure if you think FISBO is a good idea.
You know,
Those who don't, FISBO is for sale by owner.
I'm not a person of generalization. So I will never say to you, well, you never would do that. I suppose that for someone that may make sense for whatever reason. I could just speak from firsthand experience. I sold my house recently a couple of years ago. Let me tell you, my broker was amazing. More importantly, I didn't need to use her when I bought my house. Going from the sell to the buy, I did not need to use her. If anyone didn't need to use a broker, it was me, quite frankly. I 100% used her, and she was instrumental. We had a difficult seller, difficult situation, and she was terrific. So
But
I couldn't speak more highly about that.
it's definitely an important go-between, because if for anyone who's ever had an open house and been there, it's it- take that and multiply it 10 times when now you have to negotiate with someone who's dissing your house and telling you that they're going to knock it down. Yeah, it's a broker serves many purposes. No
Yeah,
question about
buying real estate is unlike anything else. Let's think, it's emotional, it is tactile. I say that you need to look with your heart, but buy with your head. But at the same time, it's all of those things wrapped up in most instances, it's going to be the largest purchase or sale that you ever do in your lifetime. So the financial implications are huge. Roll all that into a big ball. You need help doing that.
You know what's funny? I preach this is the largest financial commitment you will likely make in your lifetime, and I say that in the context of people who who go in and use a cheap attorney because they don't want to spend 4 grand, they want to spend 1 grand, and as if it doesn't matter, or the title insurance that their attorney tells them to write a check for at the closing, they don't even know what the hell it is, and yet it's protecting the largest financial commitment of their lives. It's an interesting dynamic when buyers get into real estate, they throw all of their trust behind someone, which is great because the attorney does have their best interests at heart, but they seem to lose the curiosity that we spoke about in terms of what's going on in my transaction. They just sit back and take a back seat.
I agree. I talk to the real estate agent community about talking to consumers about the idea of building a good team, and the attorney, the title person, the mortgage person, the real estate person, we all work together. Good people who know what they're doing in this industry know how to work together for the best interest of the consumer. So if a consumer is looking for someone, look for good recommendations. Obviously, talk to the various professionals. Being penny wise and pound foolish is not a great idea when you're spending all of this money.
It boggles the mind. I mean,
Oh, yeah. I'll give you a great example, Michael, which is renting out property. So owners all the time, they have an asset. Let's say they're renting out their condo in the city. It's worth $1.5 million. They're getting $3,000, $4,000 a month. And they say to the broker, can you prepare the lease for me? Now, the broker can fill in the blanks on the lease, but I'm like, wait a minute, you're asking someone for $1.5 million asset all they can do is fill in the blanks to protect, I don't know, $50,000 of cash flow with a tenant who, not saying anything disparaging about tenants, but you have professional tenants out there who don't want to leave, and you're saying to a real estate broker, you prepare the lease for me. Broker did their job. They brought people together. It makes me nuts. But again,
not only might that tenant not leave, but they probably won't be paying the rent either.
Exactly. So just a good example. We see this all the time. We do see that all the time. People, unfortunately, they make bad decisions. So I think it's our job. Look, I say with us, we're definitely not the cheapest. We're definitely not the most expensive. We're right in the middle, but I promise you, we will. We do an amazing job for you.
You know what? You're in the sweet spot. Listen,
Yeah.
you know, I've seen too many examples of penny wise and dollar foolish in my life that, you end up paying twice. You go with the cheapest contractor and he does crap work and doesn't show up. And now you have to get another contractor who's not going to certify the first guy's whatever. You know the drill.
Yeah. No, we do. We see it a lot. So, but it is important for all of us as professionals to establish our worth, to provide value, and so on, and really importantly, to work well with others. I can't really stress that enough, because we see how sometimes that isn't the case.
Everyone has to play well in the playpen.
Yeah, particularly for what we do, right? People talk about litigation. I know you've had some litigators on. Look, they do what they have to do. I don't fight with anyone. Now, I might negotiate on behalf of a client, but I'm not fighting. We're not fighting. We're working towards an end.
Solution.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. Because at the end of the day, I love what we collectively what we do. We help people find houses, places to live, shelter, all of those
We're
great
helping
things.
people build their dreams, Neil.
Yeah,
We're
I,
dream makers. You and I are dream makers.
you know what? I know you're saying that, kind of jokingly, but I will tell you that I truly believe that. I talk to the real estate agent community about that. I talk to my people about that. We do an amazing thing every day. We lose sight of it because it's so rote to us. It's just part of this formulaic process that many times we follow. So we lose sight of the fact that really what we do. And so I will say to you, yes, we really do. We do that amazing thing every day.
And you know what? That's true whether you're working with the buyer or the seller. I mean,
100%. Absolutely.
no question. So tell me the provenance of the toolbox for real estate agent success.
Sure. So during the pandemic, I thought about how to communicate with all this knowledge that I've built. And that in the context of also I'm asked to speak at real estate offices all the time. I'm asked, which was great, but it was also, particularly with the advent of Zoom, we could do 3 in a day. It wasn't, previously before COVID, I would go to someone's office, but I might do that in the morning and not, and then have the rest of the day. But so I was just finding the whole thing was overwhelming. So I decided to kind of put together these different resources, and it kind of built on it. And it was great. I mean, I think we got up to like 9,000 members.
Wow.
We built a professional model and a free model because I think that it was really important that a lot of the things we talk about, building a structure, we offered those tools for free. And then I was approached by two other lawyers, have friendly competitors. During COVID, they did the same thing, but they took a different tack, which was they focused on building a school that could offer continuing education credits. Real estate agents are required to have 22.5 hours of continuing education every 2 years. And so they approached me and they like, would you teach for us? And I'm like, not really interested in necessarily teaching. I already teach for LIBOR REBNY, but maybe we should think about pulling these two resources together. And out of that came the Real Estate Center for Success. So we also looked at the environment and said, a lot of what is being offered to real estate agents, it's not great. You read your materials, you take a test. And we said, well, do people really want to read? That's the first thing. So if they don't want to do live classes, and by the way, I still teach live, but if they don't want to do live classes, what would be good? So we pulled together in February of last year. We did a 4-day symposium. We filmed 28 hours of continuing education classes with all panel style, all with professionals. So we pulled professionals and we created this content. It actually took us in post-production till September. So we actually launched in September. So
this is a first class program, but how many credits does a real estate agent need?
So they need 22.5 hours every 2 years. And there is a core curriculum. They have to take certain classes, like for fair housing, for example, and then there's electives. So we ultimately have 31 hours, if not more, that's available. And they could do it at their own pace, on demand, on their phones, and so on. And basically what I said was, look, real estate agents, it's sometimes hard for me to ask people to pay for things that I give away all the time. That was even part of the problem with the toolbox, was they really, I'm out there giving it away, which is okay. It's served me well for all these years. I can't complain. But I said to myself, well, they have to pay for continuing education anyway. So you know what? Let's build a product. And by the way, we invested a lot of money into this, a lot. It's been a very expensive, yes, very expensive proposition, but it's there for the long haul. So what is it? It solves a couple of things for me. Number one, I don't have to be out there every day teaching. So we did really good classes. They can access those classes at any time. which is easier. Number two, there is a way to monetize the experience, the education, the knowledge, for something that they're going to have to pay for anyway. So it's really served a lot of purposes for me. But if you sign up for a bundle with the Real Estate Center for Success, that 22.5 hours, you also get the membership to the Toolbox, because we're continuing to build the Toolbox and building content and so on. So it's been great.
I have a question, and this is, you don't have to tell me your business secrets, but you're in the CE and I guess the Toolbox, you combined with the other firm. How do you, I mean, you're capturing real estate agents, obviously, which is someone who you would like to meet. How do you determine who gets the real estate? Just out of
Yeah,
you can
so
tell
no, it's a good question. We've had absolutely no problems. They have their firm, we have our firm. They have their relationships, we have our relationships. It really hasn't hasn't been an issue. It's Michael Romer and Pierre DeBoss from Romer DeBoss. Terrific guys. I mean, I didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. I like them. I've known them for years. But I didn't know, and it's been a great relationship. We've had no problems. If someone wants to refer a deal to them, they'll refer a deal to them. And we haven't had any identity crisis issues.
So you have 9,000 brokers signed up, agents signed up. How
So
many?
that's for the Toolbox. I'm not sure how many we have for the school. We've done
How many agents are there? What is the pool?
So there's 130,000 licensees, brokers, salespeople in New York. There's about 130,000 licensees in New York.
So I would imagine, do you guys approach the principals of the firms and try and have them bring you in?
So we've done some deals. We've done some affinity relationships. One of the things that I do, I talk a lot about fair housing, and I'm very passionate about it. It's a very important topic for all the reasons that you could imagine. Our 3-hour fair housing class, which covers their 3 hours of continuing education requirements, we give that away for free. And we've done that for a number of firms. So we have a relationship there, and we're hopeful that as a result of them taking the 3-hour class, that they'll see the product that we offer and they'll want to take the rest of their credits. So it's been it's worked really well. And by the way, we've probably given 2,000 people have taken the fair housing class, and not all, trust me, not all of them have signed up for continuing education. The other thing that we're doing, and again, it's going to be launched shortly, is we have established also.
Is this like what do they call it on TV? A breaking news story?
So I can't. It will be announced shortly, but we've also partnered with 2 trade associations to provide an infrastructure for this on-demand education, and so that will be announced shortly.
You're always evolving, you're always innovating. That's why you are successful. So now I wanted to ask you about the requirements that you provide, and I know that you provide the CE, and I was going to get more into whether you provide anything preliminarily for someone who wants to be an agent.
So we've done the CE piece and we continue to build that, but yes, in order to get a salesperson's license in New York, you need to take a 77-hour class, pass the test, and then pass a state test. And we are in the process of filming that 77 hours. And we're doing it a little bit differently in that we've got a great instructor. He teaches this on a regular basis, but we're moderating. So for example, I'm going to do 12 or 13, 14 hours of my core competency, and we're going to teach them together. So we work off of a textbook, and we'll do that on demand as well, and definitely a little bit different.
So you will embellish because you know some of the areas from your experience that need to be embellished.
First and foremost, people want to pass the exam. They want to get their license, right? But presumably you're not spending 77 hours just to pass an exam. How about spending 77 hours so you could pass the exam, but also then have a foundation within which to pursue a profession.
Right. So, I mean, you're offering, as they say in some places, cradle to grave education.
We're using our platform to make our constituency better, which, it's not altruistic either, right? It's an opportunity to make money. I would never deny that, an ability to monetize our experience. But also, I always say this, which is, how did I build the firm? I built the firm on the idea that if real estate agents are doing well and doing deals, I'm going to be doing deals as well.
Right.
So again, it's not necessarily altruistic, but it is all goes back to we're still helping people. That's what we do. We all of us, we do that. We help people achieve this dream. And that's why I say it seriously. I know we were joking a little bit about that, but we really are. So it all, it all does come together.
I agree 100%. So that was the requirement side, the CE, the agent test. But I think more important, especially now. So I used to watch All in the Family, and some people might remember this when he was selling his house, and there were all things about redlining, and there were all things. It was a great episode, but the risks inherent now to an agent and ultimately their broker are huge. So you started talking about fair housing, and you give a 3-hour class in fair housing. It seems that the risk to an agent, I mean, you could utter the wrong word and be in a whole heap of trouble.
Yeah, when I teach, and I teach for at least twice a month, the 3-hour class live for REBNY and LIBOR, Long Island Board of Realtors, Real Estate Board of New York. And I say this at the beginning, I say, look, I don't care about the racist real estate agent. Why do I say that? Obviously, I say it from the perspective of anything I do or say, likely not going to change anything. And even if I talk about the fines and all of that, I'm not condoning it. Please don't take it that way. But that's not my point. My point is that I'm far more concerned with the 50, 60 people that I'm teaching at any given time, or 100 people. They just want to do their job. They don't care what someone looks like. They don't care about their religion, their sex, and so on. They want to do their job so they can collect their commission. They can do an amazing thing and move on to the next one.
Absolutely.
Fair housing laws are really complex. And so what we do is with an underpinning of why we do what we do, the importance of fair housing, it is to help real estate agents understand what the laws are and use strategies in order to comply with those laws to get to the finish line. And so, yes, I'm concerned about, again, the person just wants to do their job, but we don't want them violating fair housing laws for obvious reasons. And we want to make sure that they can just get to the finish line. It's good for everyone.
Good for everyone. But I'd asked you before whether you go to the broker, or, the owner of a big company. What is the risk if an agent violates fair housing in some way? What is the risk to that broker?
So the risk has changed a little bit. There was an article in Newsday in 2019 called Long Island Divided, and it was a 3-year investigation that Newsday did, and it really disclosed significant amounts of fair housing violations, both overt and then much more understated. It focused on statistics, and so maybe not even intentional violations, but it created this. It showed how if left to their own devices, a real estate agent very well may take someone of color to an area of color because they felt like that is where they'd want to live and so on, right?
In a relatively white neighborhood, they would say something like, "Yeah, you're not going to like the schools here."
So, right, so that's that's overt, right? Saying something like that is clearly a racist. It's clearly a fair housing violation. I'm talking more about someone comes to you, Michael, and what they did was they used paired testers. So a white person, a person of color, and they wanted to see if financially they were very similar, even geographically, roughly. looking the same, but how would you, as a real estate agent, make a decision about where you wanted to provide opportunities, right? And just there's concepts of implicit bias and whatever, and just so they just showed statistically how those choices, when made by the real estate agent, were steering people to a particular area. So obviously we need to. So I say now, if someone comes to you and says, "Well, I want to live in this, I want to be in a primarily Jewish neighborhood," the appropriate response is, you tell me where you want to live geographically. I'm not going to pick and choose where I think. You tell me, the real estate agent, very specifically where you want to live, streets, city, whatever it is, right? So the reason why I brought that up.
Is that a change? So when I looked for a house in 94, I don't remember where I said I wanted to live. I don't remember much, but is that a change from when I was looking? Now an agent is going to wait to see what the,
I think it is a little bit. Even if you ask me, I created the REBNY fair housing class 15 years ago. And I would have maybe answered that question a little bit different. If someone came to me and said, "Look, I want to live in an Orthodox Jewish community," I might have said, "Oh, okay, let me find some options for you." I would, again, as I said, I would answer that question differently. I'd say, you consumer, you buyer, need to tell me more specifically from a geographic perspective where you want to live.
so
Um,
would that be a violation if you said, I'm gonna, great, let me show you some Orthodox communities. Is that a violation?
it's not a per se fair housing violation, but again, I would not recommend it. I would leave it up to the buyer to tell you specifically where they want to look, and then I would provide options. So you asked me the question I wanted to bring, because as a result of Long Island Divided, though, there were a number of laws that were passed or changes that were made. And one of the changes that was made, the Department of State always had the ability to revoke a real estate license for what was, for the language in the statute or the rules and regulations, is for untrustworthy behavior, or not doing your job with good skill and care. But then it was made very specific that if you, a licensee, are found guilty of a fair housing violation, they will revoke your license. So you asked me about brokers. Well, up to that point, I hadn't seen that, but I know for a fact that the Department of State recently revoked a broker's license and a salesperson's license by virtue of what the salesperson did. So you asked me, it's kind of a long way of getting there, but the idea is that yes, brokers have, they have liability for the things that their agents do. They always have had that, but the Department of State is certainly more empowered on fair housing violations to fine and revoke licenses.
So it seems that, and again, I'm not here to sell anything, but it seems that the brokers should take a much greater, maybe they do, I don't know, should take a much greater interest in making damn sure that their agents are as educated and prepared as possible, and then something can still go wrong, but they
We,
need,
and they do. But look, I spend a lot of time training on fair housing, answering fair housing questions. We host a legal hotline for REBNY. So we answer 6 to 10 phone calls and emails every day. There's a pretty good chance that 3 or 4 questions a week are going to be fair housing, if not more.
right.
So it's taken seriously. I don't want to. And I just actually was interviewed by Newsday, and I have seen from 2019 to 24 a good change in awareness and the need to make sure that we're doing this. So I think that it was an unfortunate and very upsetting investigation, but I think that the things that have come out with it are good. And maybe even I was a little naive of thinking, oh,
It's good.
everyone is going to do the right thing. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So look, I was teaching maybe fair housing once every couple of months when we first started this. Now, as I said, I'm teaching it at least the 2-3 hour classes. People are taking my tape class, every day, and I'm out there just individually doing, these 1 hour classes. And so just from an awareness perspective, it's changed significantly.
So we're actually over time, but I want to ask you one about Ask Neil. because I think that's a very, I imagine, popular aspect of the toolbox. What is Ask Neil?
So on every page, there's a button that say Ask Neil. If someone has a question, they can pose it to me. And just like we do for Rebney, we answer those 6 to 10 calls and emails every day. We effectively do the same thing. The difference is on the toolbox, it's anonymous, but we'll post the question and the answer so people can see. In Rebney, we don't post the questions and answers like that. We do a question of the week where we pick a question that we've received. And so at least with Ask Neil, you're on the toolbox, you're getting to see more of the questions and the answers that we're out.
I mean, it seems to me, maybe I'm biased because I was able to get you to be a guest on my podcast, but I think that the 100 and something thousand agents that are not signed up with the toolbox should get off their ass and really sign up for the toolbox.
Yeah, we'd love to have everyone. Again, we've done this because we love doing it. It's been a great relationship. So,
you know what, your passion for what you do, sometimes you talk to people and they're not as passionate, but I can tell that you love what you do, which means you don't work a day in your life. Congratulations.
Thanks, Michael. Well, I am very passionate about what I do. And as we've talked about, if work was fun, it would be called fun. It's still work, right? But I love what I do every day. Do I love every minute of every day? No, let's be honest. I don't know. Work is still work. We work really hard. I know you do. Don't want to, but it's nice to be, again, for us to collectively work in an area which I think really, which ultimately has great results for the people that we represent. And that, to me, that really is. It's really nice for us.
Absolutely. And you know what? So to end, how do they get to the toolbox?
Yeah, just if you Google toolbox for the number 4, real estate, toolbox for success, or the REC for success, Google Neil Garfinkel, it's very easy to find me, and you can go to the toolbox, you could sign up, you can go to Real Estate Center for Success and sign up for the free fair housing class. But it's pretty easy to find us.
Fantastic. Neil, you've been great. No surprise there. And I hope that we'll have you on sometime in the future.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right.
I'm ready for the outro.
Thank you for listening to Do You Ever Wonder? And we hope that you enjoyed the show. Next week, we will have another terrific guest telling their story. And if there are any specific topics you'd like to hear more about, please don't hesitate to let us know. Our curiosity, like yours, knows no bounds. Please subscribe and like and share this episode on your social media. See you next week.